to KCS at Home Summer Edition Social Studies 6th Grade Activity Week 1. If the video is hard to understand, turn on closed captions if available, adjust the playback speed to slow down the video, consider watching short clips, then pause, listen, and watch again, and ask someone at your home to watch the video with you. Stop frequently and talk to your partner about what you heard and understood. Today, your teachers will be myself, Miss Loveland from Carnes Middle School, 6th grade Social Studies and Math, and Miss Dotson also from Carnes Middle School for 6th grade Social Studies. The first part of our lesson is looking at two objectives on geography. The first objective is to identify and locate the geographical features of ancient Rome, and then to look at how that geographical location of ancient Rome contributed to its political and economic growth in the Mediterranean region and beyond. The first thing we're going to do is look at the geography. So as we begin to look at ancient Rome, think of the following questions. What country is Rome located? That would be Italy. What continent is Italy located? And that would be Europe. The following maps show these locations. This map shows Europe, and this map shows Italy. Look at this map. This is a physical map of ancient Rome, or of ancient Italy. What are some physical features that you see on this map? Maybe you see mountains, middle of the map. Maybe you see some rivers indicated by the blue lines. Maybe you see some islands. Italy itself is a peninsula. And the last one is the seas. There are lots of seas that surround Italy. Were you able to find those on the map? Can you label this map? Can you locate these following items? Constantinople, the Italian Alps, the Italian Peninsula, the Mediterranean Sea, Rome, and the Tiber River. Remember that the gray areas on this map are the seas, and the white areas are the land. Here's an example of what this map labeled might look like. Constantinople was labeled on the map for you. Were you able to find it? The Italian Alps are located at the north of Italy, just under where it's labeled as Europe. The Italian Peninsula is represented by a boot, so that's something you can always remember about Italy, is it looks like a boot. On this map, the Mediterranean Sea was labeled also. It's not always labeled. Rome was not labeled on your map, but it's represented with this orange dot. If you just go north of the toe here of Italy, you'll find where Rome is located. And the Tiber River is a river that runs in the middle of Italy. It was also not drawn on your map. Here's another map of ancient Rome that shows you these features as well, so you can see it in a little bigger perspective. We have the Alps at the north. You can see where Rome is here. Number 5 over here is Constantinople. You can also see where Italy is in relation to other ancient civilizations that we've talked about this year. Over here is Mesopotamia and Egypt. Israel is along here, and then here's Greece. So you can see a lot of the civilizations that we've talked about are found on this map. The next objective we're going to look at is how did that geographic location help Italy with its political and economic growth? Take a moment to read this paragraph from your textbook. I will read it along to you. It says, impact of geography. Rome's geography is one reason it became so powerful during ancient times. Its strategic position atop the hills, the roadblock created by the Alps, and the natural moat formed by the surrounding seas protected Rome from invasion. Resources from the land also helped the city develop economically. Building materials such as stone and marble were abundant. Artisans used local clay, to create pottery and crafted other goods that they traded with other civilizations. The Mediterranean Sea provided a route for Roman traders to reach many other cities. These factors helped Rome's economy, and its military advantages allowed a powerful government to form over time. Now that we've read this paragraph about the impact of geography, let's answer a couple of questions. Remember, you can stop the video and go back to that text if you need to. So the main thing we're looking at is the geography of Italy made land travel difficult, but helped Romans prosper. So these three questions that I want you to answer are, first, can you identify the mountain ranges that are in Italy and where are they located? Why would Romans grow a wide variety of crops? And how did Romans take advantage of Italy's physical geography? Remember, you can pause the video and go back to the paragraph to check your answers. Here are the answers to these questions. Question number 1, the Alps are in the north, the Apennines along the length of the Italian peninsula. So they're in the middle of the island, the peninsula. And why could Romans grow a wide range of crops? And that was because their climate was very mild. And then the last one, the physical geography helped Rome because it provided a defense and they could capture fresh water flowing down from the mountains. The last thing we're going to look at for this objective, or for these first two objectives, is a comparison of the description of the physical geography and the effect that it had on Italy. So let's look at this chart. So the mountain ranges its effect on Italy was that it was hard for people to cross from one side of the peninsula to the other. The volcanic mountains could have provided eruptions that devastated towns. Mountains or hilly land, the cities were built on hills for defense. Rivers that flow out of the mountains allowed for cities to be built near rivers for water. And warm, dry summers and mild, rainy winters provided a variety of crops to be grown, and food supply was plentiful. Italy's geographic location on the edge of the Mediterranean Sea contributed to Italy's political and economic growth in the Mediterranean region. Italy turned to the Mediterranean Sea to gain the resources they needed to improve their empire.
Hi guys! Welcome to KCS At Home Summer Edition, Social Studies 6th Grade Activity 1. I am Miss Dotson. I'm at Carnes Middle School and I teach 6th grade social studies. You previously heard from Miss Loveland, who's also from Carnes Middle School. She teaches 6th grade social studies and math. Before we dig a little deeper, let's consider these 4 components. If this video is hard to understand, 1, turn on closed caption if available. You may need to go to the settings. 2, adjust the playback speed to slow down the video. 3, consider watching short clips, then pause, listen, and watch again. 4, ask someone in your home to watch the video with you. Stop frequently and talk to your partner about what you heard and understood. Parts 2 lesson objectives are 6.53, 6.54. The big idea to keep in mind throughout the lesson is Rome's tripartite government and written laws help create a stable society and pave the way for later expansions. From kings to republic, but why? Well, let's first define the word republic. What is a republic? We know what a king is. So a republic is a form of government in which elected officials govern the state. The power rests with the citizens who have the right to vote for their leaders. Rome allowed freeborn male citizens to participate in elections. Women could not vote. Do you remember the difference between direct democracy and representative democracy? That's right, you have to flash back to ancient Greece. Direct democracy is when you directly cast your vote, essentially. Representative democracy is when someone represents you or the people that lives in your town area that go and vote on your behalf. So that's the difference between direct democracy, representative democracy, and the new form of government that we're moving into called the republic. As we get started, I felt that it's best that we talk about Rome's social order to better understand the constructs of how Rome's government was created. So first, in my class throughout the years, I would teach the kids to remember the triangle, to reflect on a civilization, social order, social hierarchy, social class. So the first term is called the Patricians, who were aristocratic landowners who held most power in Rome. They only made up of 10% of the population, but they ran the government and they made the laws. Next were the Plebeians. They were farmers, artisans, and merchants. They were the majority in Rome. Therefore, who was the minority in Rome? That's right, the Patricians. However, the plebeians were barred from holding most government offices. So let's do the math. So if the patricians were 10%, okay, and then we have the slaves that were 30%, that makes 40%. What's left to make 100%? 60%. So 60% of the population was plebeians. Women were expected to run the household and take care of the children. This is similar to other civilizations. One difference with Roman women is that they were able to inherit money from their father when he died. Children in the Roman society share similarities with children today. They play games. They played with dolls and toys. No shocker there. Next were slaves. Slaves were very important to the Roman society. They played a significant role. In fact, about 30% of the population was enslaved. They were treated cruelly. They essentially built the grand city of Rome for free. Last, we have the foreigners. They enjoyed a slightly higher social standing than slaves, be it rare, but they could also be granted citizenship if they adopted the Roman ways. The 12 Tables of Ancient Rome. They were the first written code of law in Rome. The plebeians demanded the law of Rome be written down. Make it fair. Laws were then carved on 12 bronze tablets and displayed in the Roman Forum. This established the principle that all free citizens had the right to protection of the law. Can you tell me why they demanded it to be written down? What happened in past civilizations? So you can refer all the way back to almost the beginning of 6th grade when we learned about a man by the name of Ur-Nammu. He was the one that created the first law code. I think it was about 40 paragraphs that had information about crimes and punishment. But the downside of that brilliant idea way back when was that only the top part of the social order, the social class, could read. So they were the only ones that knew what law people were breaking and what would happen if you broke the law. So next, as time moved on, we had another law code that was presented. I'll give you a hint. Babylon. You guessed it. Hammurabi's Code. Hammurabi's Code is a set of law codes, about 282, that dealt with almost every part of daily life. The uniqueness of this law code was that it was written for all to see. It was placed in the middle of the market so that everybody on the social order had access to it, and there was no excuse why you didn't know that stealing was not okay. All right, so this is a visual aid because this lecture is very heavy with information. I feel like this video is helpful for differentiation for students who learn best by using visual aids. So one option is to write this link down in your address bar, in your computer, or on your telephone. It's written right here in red. You can pause it, write it down exactly, watch the video. I feel like this video will help congeal and make the information that I'm talking about make more sense to some, and for others, they can just enjoy the video. At this time, I would like for you to get a piece of notebook paper out and take notes. At our school, we write focus notes or Cornell notes, whatever you're comfortable with. If it's important, if it's bold, if it's pertinent information, then write it down. Let's start with the main idea. Roman government was made up of three parts that worked to make the government. We know that Rome was once run by kings, but why not anymore, right? The kings were cruel. They didn't want any one man to have all the power anymore. That's why they created the what? That's right, the Republic. As with all new things, when you start from scratch, there's some areas it's not perfect. So it came about that the plebeians were unhappy with the status quo with the new republic government. And the plebeians complained to the city's leaders, and the leaders knew that they had to do something. If the people stayed unhappy, they might rise up and overthrow the whole government, and that would not be good. So to calm the angry plebeians, the patricians made some changes to Rome's government. They created new offices that could only be held by the plebeians. These people would protect the rights of the plebeians. Over time, the distinctions between the plebeians and patricians went away. But guys, it took a very long time. So one of the most memorable kings that was cruel, his name was Tarquin the Proud. Some say that it was that king that broke the camel's back. And after this king, the Roman citizens no longer wanted one man with all the power. And what was the new form of government that the Romans created or constructed? The Republic. You getting it now? Good. So there was a tripartite government that was created. So analyze the image here on the side. Use your key to determine what two categories we're talking about. So the lilac is patricians, the purple is plebeians. So Rome developed a tripartite government, which is a government with three parts, because you know that tri means three. Each part had its own set of duties and responsibilities. To fulfill these duties, each part had its own powers, rights, and privileges. Do you know of another government with a tripartite setup? Think time. Where do you live? That's right, here in the United States. There are three parts to our government. There is the executive branch, where the president works. You have the legislative branch that composes of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Then you have the judicial branch, where you have the Supreme Court and the lower courts. The first part of Rome's government was made up of elected officials. These officials were called magistrates. The two most powerful magistrates in Rome were called the consuls. These two, there are two, so that only one can run the city while the other one can lead the army. The regular magistrates had their own duties. Some were judges, others were in charge of money or setting up games and festivals. So question, how long did the magistrates get to serve? That's right, 1 year. The second part of Rome's government was the Senate. The Roman Senate was a council of wealthy and powerful Romans that advised the city's leaders. It was originally created to advise the kings, but there's no kings. So they adapted and advised the councils now. The senators hold office for how long? That's right, for life. At first, most senators were patricians, but as time went on, hundreds of years, many wealthy plebeians became senators. So explain, why was the Senate so powerful? Go back to your text, find the answer right there. Because the senators held office for life. Next is the consuls. When the consuls and the magistrates finished their 1-year term, they still wanted to participate in government. So where do you think they participated? That's right, the Senate. Because magistrates became senators, when their terms were over, they tried to make nice with the Senate so they had a job when they were done. Job security. As time passed, the Senate became powerful. It gained influence over magistrates and took control over the city's finances. By 200 BC, the Senate had great influence over Rome's government. Now remember, you may pause the video and take notes. The third part of Rome's government protected the common people. It had two branches. The assemblies, both patricians and plebeians made up the assembly. The primary job of the assembly was to elect the magistrate to run the cities. Next, tribunes. The tribunes made up of the elected group of officials, elected by the plebeians only. They had the power to veto. What does veto mean? To cancel, to stop actions by other officials. The word veto means I forbid in Latin. To veto power means, the veto power made the tribunes very powerful. To keep the tribunes from abusing power, they could only be in office for 1 year. You see a theme going on? Not one person had too much power. They were scarred. They wanted to learn their lesson, maybe I should say. So now what? Well, this type of government takes a lot of participation. The people of Rome participated because they felt like they had a civic duty to do so. Civic duty means a duty to their city, right? This included doing what they could to make sure Rome was successful. They were expected to, attend assembly meetings, to vote in elections. Voting was complicated in Rome. Not everyone could do it. So if you could, you were expected to be there. Wealthy and powerful citizens felt it was their duty to hold public office and to help run a city. In return for their commitment, these citizens were respected and admired by other Romans. In addition to limiting how long a person could serve, Romans put other restrictions on their leaders' power. They did this by giving government officials the ability to restrict the powers of other officials. For example, one consul could block the actions of the other consul. Laws proposed by the Senate had to be approved by the magistrates and ratified by the assemblies. We call this checks and balances, or ways of balancing power. This way, again, no one part of the government becomes stronger than the other. Checks and balances made Rome's government very complicated. But when people disagreed, it could get ugly. But when they worked together and all parts of the government did their job, the government was strong and highly efficient. Now, I would like for you to pause and take a piece of paper, turn your paper over on the back, and draw these two graphic organizers on your paper. You're going to use these graphic organizers to help you answer the following two questions on the following slide. The first one you guys know is a Venn diagram, and the next one is a T-chart. If you need to pause the video, you may do so. So, we're going to check for understanding. The first question is to compare the difference between a republic and a direct democracy. Now remember, the republic is what the Romans created. We've went over in great detail so far. The direct democracy was what was created in ancient Greece. It's when you directly participated in the government. So I would choose the Venn diagram, the two circles that overlap, right? And I would write down bullet points within the circles, facts that you've learned. If you need to go back to a particular slide, you may do so. Pause, rewind, and then move forward. The second question is to distinguish. Distinguish what was the difference between the Patricians and the Plebeians, the two major categories in the social class within ancient Rome. Remember, the Patricians were the wealthy individuals that were citizens in Rome, and then you have the Plebeians that made up of 60% of the citizens in Rome that were farmers, merchants, and artisans. So state facts that you've learned from the lecture about those particular citizens in ancient Rome. Again, you may rewind, go back to a particular slide to get textual evidence to prove your point. You may use your T-chart on this particular question. Number 3, explain how the 12 tables of Rome and Hammurabi's code is similar. Then explain how they're different. You may think of the location. Where did the Romans place their 12 tables after a given point so that all can see? Did Hammurabi's keep theirs in a particular place? And last, summarize how the United States has expanded upon the Roman system of government. I'll give you a hint. 3. In my class, I conduct the if you were there moments. I would ask you to close your eyes and pretend that you are time traveling, maybe with Mr. Peabody, and just place yourself into the ancient times. And today we're in ancient Rome. So if you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes and pretend you're in ancient Rome. Here goes. If you were there, you have been just elected as government official in Rome. Your duty is to represent the plebeians, which are the common people. You hold office for only 1 year, but you have one important power. You can stop laws from being passed. Now, city leaders are proposing a law that will hurt the plebeians. If you stop the new law, it'll hurt your future in politics. If you let the law pass, it'll hurt the people that you're supposed to protect. Will you let the new law pass? Why or why not? Be very specific in citing your reasoning. So an expectation is to have a minimum of 2 sentences or more, not an essay. You may go back in the slides and find textual evidence to prove your point.
Now that you have learned all about Rome's geography and its government, it's your turn to complete some worksheets. You can use the material found in this video to help you with the worksheets as well as the text provided. The worksheets look like this. There's one for lesson 1 and one for lesson 2. They all have key terms, paragraph to read, and a question to answer. The last page of each one has a challenge activity if you want to take your learning a step further, and it has a true, false, or a matching activity.
All right, guys, this concludes the KCS at Home Summer Edition Social Studies 6th Grade Activity 1. I am Ms. Dotson, and I hope that you have a wonderful summer. Stay well.